Hi there, and welcome to this very special bonus video. I'm Danny Eni, and I will be your instructor. This video is a little bit different from the other videos that I've given you. In the other videos, I taught you how to use my business optimization framework to get more money out of your business website or blog. Those were very useful videos, but they were about optimizing, taking what you've already got and making it work better. This video is about more than just optimization. In this video, I'm going to teach you the real key to true business success. And true business success is about a lot more than just making money. Sure, money is part of it, but there's a lot more to it than that. True business success is about being happy and creating the lifestyle that you want to be living. It's about having the freedom to do whatever you care about most, whether that's traveling the world or providing for your family. It's about having the ability to make the world a better place. So what is the real key to true business success? Well, I'll tell you what it is, but first let me tell you what it's not. It's not traffic or leads or anything like that. It isn't conversions or sales, and it isn't your product or offer either. The trouble is that almost every expert you'll talk to insists that it is one of these things. But they're wrong. Those things are all important, but they're all just small parts of a much bigger whole, and it's the whole that really matters. What I'm talking about is the business model. Traffic, conversions, and product are all parts of it, but no one component of a business model is enough to make you truly successful. What you need is a complete business model that works, that scales, and that fits with your values. Hardly any of the marketing and business experts I've seen really talk about the business model, or how to turn yours into a true recipe for business success. And you know what? I understand why. Arriving at a business model that really works isn't easy. It takes a lot of experience, a lot of insight, and some hard work. But it is absolutely worth it, and it is the only way to achieve true business success and everything that comes with it. So let me explain what a business model really is, and then we'll talk about how to make it work, how to make it scale, and how to make sure that it fits with your values. A business model is the way in which a business makes money, by taking inputs, turning them into outputs, and doing it in a profitable way. I know that sounds like a mouthful, so let's try a really simple example. Let's say that you run a newspaper delivery service. Every morning you pick up your big bag of newspapers and then you go out and deliver them to your clients. Your inputs are the newspapers, and the outputs are newspapers delivered to the doorsteps of your customers. Each input and each output is a relationship. For your business model to work, every relationship has to be governed by a simple rule that I'm going to teach you. The rule is that value has to be greater than cost. And it means that you're getting more out of the deal than it is costing you. This has to be true of every single deal for every person who is involved. Here's how that would look in our newspaper delivery example. On the input side, you're getting the newspapers. The newspaper company sells them to you for more than their cost of production, so they're getting more value than cost. You can then sell the newspapers for more than it costs you to buy them, so you're getting more value than cost too. The same logic works with your customers. They pay more than it costs you to buy and deliver the newspapers, so you get more value than cost. And having a newspaper delivered to your customer's door is worth more to them than what you're charging, otherwise they wouldn't have signed up, so they're getting more value than cost too. Value always has to be greater than cost, otherwise the deal breaks down. If the newspaper company charges you more than you can sell the papers for, then you aren't going to buy them. And if you try to charge more than the delivered newspaper is worth to your customers, they will cancel their subscription. So for the business model to work, value has to be greater than cost for every person who is involved with every input and every output. But it's not enough for the business model to work. It also has to scale. Scaling means that you have to be able to process the volume of business that you need in order to get the results that you want. What if you made $1 for every newspaper that you delivered and each delivery took you 10 minutes? Your effective hourly rate would be $6 an hour. Whether or not that's okay depends on your goals. If you're a kid that wants some extra spending money to buy candy and comic books, then it's fine. But if you need to provide for a family, it probably isn't. Let's say that your target annual salary is $60,000. To achieve that goal, you'd need to work 10,000 hours, which means that if you never took a day off, you would have to work 27 hours per day, and that doesn't include time to pick up the newspapers, not to mention eating and sleeping. Of course, you can't work 27 hours a day. Even though the business model seems to work, you can't do enough business to make enough money. In other words, it doesn't scale. which means that you have to change the business model. For example, instead of doing the deliveries on foot, you might buy a bicycle, which would allow you to deliver papers in a quarter of the time. In that case, your effective hourly rate would be $24 an hour, and you could achieve your target annual salary by only working 2,500 hours per year. That works out to just under 7 hours a day, assuming you never take a day off. That's better, but not good enough. So what if you added magazines to your offer? Now you aren't just delivering newspapers, you're delivering magazines too, which means that even though you're making the same number of deliveries, you can make more money with each delivery. Let's say that adding magazines to your offer will triple the money that you make with each delivery, so your effective hourly rate goes up to $72 an hour. Now things are looking better. You can achieve your target annual salary by working only 833 hours per year, which means that you can take weekends off plus 2 weeks of vacation and still only work 3.5 hours per day. And that's good because there are lots of other factors that we haven't talked about yet, like the time and work involved in actually finding and signing customers up, picking up the newspapers and magazines, doing your taxes, and so forth. This is starting to get complicated, and we're dealing with a very simple business model. Most businesses are a lot more complicated than a delivery route. So why does almost every business owner take their business model for granted and just assume that it's okay? Why don't they think through whether or not it will actually work? That's a big problem for many entrepreneurs, and it's the reason why a lot of them struggle without ever achieving true business success. Most business models that entrepreneurs try to build just don't work, and they don't realize it until it's too late. So why do entrepreneurs just like you take it for granted that their business model must be okay? It's because even though most business model ideas don't work, we're only exposed to the ones that do, because all the models that don't work don't stay in business long enough to catch our attention. That's why we don't get to see a lot of real-life examples of business models that don't work. There is one exception, and that happens when you have a business model that worked until the industry changed. Then we get to watch the business either adapt or slowly go out of business. Like the newspaper industry. Their business model worked perfectly until people started reading the news online for free. Now a lot of their customers aren't getting more value than cost, and the business model is breaking down. Newspapers are experimenting with new ideas like charging people for online access. But so far it isn't working, and newspaper companies are losing a lot of money. And here's why. When you change one part of the business model, everything else changes too. Every change involves new inputs, new outputs, and new relationships. All of the dynamics are different, which means that you probably can't take a broken business model and try to change just one little thing for it to work again. It isn't just newspapers that are hurting either. Look at the music industry, film studios, television networks, and book publishers. These are all industries that have changed a lot recently, and the companies haven't really caught up yet. Some of these companies are decades or even centuries old, but in a lot of ways they're in the same boat as brand new businesses like yours. They're all making bad assumptions that just aren't true. Like newspapers thinking that they still have a monopoly on access to breaking news, in a world of instant updates on blogs and YouTube. Or the music industry thinking that they can stick with business as usual, in the face of peer-to-peer music sharing and iTunes. Or film studios thinking that if they do enough marketing before a movie is released, they'll get enough people to see it before word gets out that it isn't very good. In the age of text messaging, blogging, and Twitter, if the movie is bad, the world knows it within 3 hours of the first screening. Or television networks thinking that they can force you to watch their shows on their TV channel or website. Or book publishers thinking that their business model, which hasn't changed since the Great Depression, won't be affected by technologies like print on demand or Amazon's Kindle. These assumptions are all wrong, and as long as these companies don't get really creative with their business models, they're headed straight for the history books. These companies aren't the only ones with bad assumptions. The majority of new ventures have the exact same problem. Here are just a few of the bad assumptions that I see entrepreneurs making every single day. Bloggers who expect to replace their income by running ads on their site. It's almost impossible, but they just assume that it will work. Freelancers thinking that they can make a comfortable living by billing $50 an hour. The math just doesn't work out for that, and neither does the business model. Online entrepreneurs who think they will create an information product, do a launch, and make enough money to quit their jobs. It is possible to create a viable business that sells information products, but 99% of online entrepreneurs have bad assumptions that are dooming them to failure. And anyone who talks about passive income. Yes, it is possible to create systems that generate wealth for you without you having to invest a lot of ongoing effort. But for that to work, there has to be a real business model behind it, and hardly anyone who talks about passive income understands how it all fits together. Just like the big companies that I described a moment ago, if these entrepreneurs aren't careful and don't find a new business model that works, pretty soon they'll be out of business. Now you can make money with a business model that works and scales, but that isn't enough for true business success. For that, you need a business model that fits your values. In other words, you have to feel good about the impact that every one of those value greater than cost business relationships is having on the world. Here's an example to show you what I mean. Imagine that instead of delivering newspapers, you were selling drugs. The numbers might work out and you might make a lot of money, but your business would be bad for the world. You'd be supporting drug suppliers by buying their merchandise, and you'd be selling a product that destroys lives. You might be making money, but you wouldn't be happy about what you're doing, and you wouldn't be making the world a better place. That isn't true business success. True business success requires a business model that works, that scales, and that fits with your values. Now the only question is, how do you do it? The first step is to spell out your business model. Make a list of all of your inputs and all of your outputs. Figure out how much everything actually costs you and how much money you stand to make. Then figure out how much business you need to do in order to reach your goals, and see if that number is practical. When you see that your business model doesn't make sense, because that's what happens for 99% of entrepreneurs, it's time for you to adjust the model. Experiment with different ideas until the model really does work and scales the way you need it to. Remember that every relationship has to be governed by the value greater than cost rule for every person who is involved. Finally, make sure that every action you take fits with your values. If it doesn't feel right, then it probably isn't. And a good rule of thumb is that if you wouldn't be comfortable telling your parents and your kids about what you're doing, then you shouldn't be doing it. That's the entire process. It's not easy to do, and it might take a lot of time and experimentation, especially if you've never done this before. But it's absolutely worth it, and it really is the only way that you can achieve true business success. And as I mentioned at the start of this video, true business success is about a lot more than just money. True business success is about being happy and creating the lifestyle that you want to be living. It's about having the freedom to do whatever you care about most, whether that's traveling the world or providing for your family. It's about having the ability to make the world a better place. That's true business success, and that's what I want to help you create for yourself.